Welcome back to our CSE TV station News and Updates. I'm your host taking you through the news section on 1st of March 2050. There was an abnormal rise of people working in the landfill were sent to hospital with unknown reasons. Our reporter Louis is there to interview one of the workers. Louis, what's happening around?
Hi, how long have you worked in landfill and do you have any health reasons?
I have worked in this landfill for almost 10 years and I feel my health is being worse.
What symptoms do you get?
I started to be headache and I often forget things.
I don't know why you get this.
So actually I don't really know why it is happened, but I realized that there are more and more PV panels disposed in this landfill. Yeah.
Louis from CSE News. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. In the last decade, there was a huge technological breakthrough in solar panel, making them more affordable for application. At the same time, there is also a rising concern about the environmental impacts of those end-of-life solar panels after their disposal.
We have Dr. Felix Sham, an expert in solar panel and its leaching impact. Dr. Felix Sham will help us to unpack this issue.
What's the impact of disposal of solar panel?
Okay. I have been working on the experiment about the leaching of solar panel for years. In order to investigate the after end-of-life concerns of solar panels, in this experiment, 4 commercially available solar panels, including monocrystallized silicon, multicrystallized silicon, amorphous PV, and CIGS were used and reduced to a size of 15 cm times 15 cm. They were then enclosed in a glass trays with 4 different leaching solutions, which were rainwater, groundwater, seawater, and landfill leachate. The landfill leachate used was a real leachate taken from the New Delhi in India. Besides using different types of solar panels and leaching solutions, 2 sets of experimental setups were used. The first setup includes broken pieces, and the second setup includes the intact PV pieces without any glass cracking. After 1 year, all the samples were used for metal and carbon release analysis. After the metal analysis, the type and the amount of metal being released were identified. For monocrystallized silicon and multicrystallized silicon, under the acidic condition, the maximum metal dissolution was observed for nickel, lead, aluminium, and copper. For amorphous PV, under the acidic condition, the maximum metal dissolution was observed for silver, lead, copper, and chromium. As for CIGS, being the second-generation solar panel, although the maximum metal dissolution was observed for most of the metal under the acidic condition, the percentage of the initial metal content is a lot lower than those of the silicon-based panel. Unlike the other metal, copper, indium, gallium, and selenium shows a maximum dissolutions as pH 7. After knowing the metal dissolution results, the leachate pollution index of the samples is calculated and being compared with the initial LPI before leaching. While the LPI represents the contamination potential of the landfill leachate, with summarizing the complex leachate pollution data, which can be calculated by this equation. As a result, the increase in LPI of the leachate after 1 year study was observed. Such significant increase in the LPI indicates a cause of concern and the importance of understanding the impacts of the end-of-life solar panels on the environment if dumped without any treatment.
Solar cells are usually composed of the front cover, encapsulate solar cells, and the back cover. However, there is a chance of exposing the metal layer or coating if glass or encapsulant was broken during the transportation and assembly. Encapsulant degradation and delamination can also be resulted as water penetrates through the laminated edges and black sheet of module. Binding agent consisted of C2H4 will release in due course. It was also suggested that the dissolution rate is inversely correlated to the pH value of solution, with the highest carbon release observed in broken multi-silicon submerged in rainwater. In order to investigate the adverse environmental impacts of the leachate, we have invited Dr. Louis Chow to explain an ecotoxicology experiment details to us.
After we found the metal content from leachates of silicon solar panel, we have to see if they are toxic. Therefore, the leaching results and current European benchmark limit were compared and found that all the maximum metal exceeded the limits. The ecotoxicological assessment of leachates was then conducted. A battery of toxicity tests with 3 types of species, bacteria, algae, and crustacea was carried out on PV-panel leachates. The results of the test is shown in this figure. In relation to the threshold limits of EC20 for algae tests and of EC50 for bacteria and crustacea tests, then it found that more than 80% of the leachates were ecotoxic. In particular, 77% of the samples resulted the most ecotoxic and have adverse effect to 3 species. The measured toxicity was positively correlated to various heavy metals, and high amount of that seemed to be the main reason of ecotoxicity in this case. Even though high amount of aluminum was found in most of the samples, it seemed not contribute to the overall toxicity, probably for a scarce bioavailability in the test conditions. As you can see, some of the panels with high aluminum amount but resulted not toxic to test organisms. Additionally, by comparison of some metal toxicities with other assessment, the occurrence of a specific metal might not be the reason to the effect. Indeed, joint effects due to the co-occurrence of different metals should be considered, and therefore further study is recommended.
An ecotoxicological assessment was conducted to assess the electrotoxicological effect that may caused by the CIGS PV panel leachate on the organisms. The panels were cut into small pieces to simulate the damaged panel after prolonged use, and the pieces were then placed under the mesophilic lake water, acidic rainwater, and seawater for 4 months. The leachates were then diluted and provided to the zebrafish embryos for 120 HPF. After that, the hatching rate, the motility, and morphological abnormalities of the zebrafish were observed and recorded. Here is the leachate characterization. The most concentrated metal in the experiments were the molybdenum, copper, zinc, iron, and tin. It seems that the effect on the zebrafish embryos should be caused by such metals. So for the mortality, the impact on the survival rate is not significant. However, for the hatching successful rate, the embryos normally hatched after 48 HPF, and the hatching rate was almost 100% at 96 HPF. However, for the CIGS in the acidic rainwater, only 20% of the embryos were hatched at 120 HPF. And for the seawater, no zebrafish embryos were hatched at 120 HPF. It shows that the CIGS leachate inhibit the hatching of the embryos. Here is the other observations. The pericardial edema occurred under the acidic rain and the seawater conditions from 40 HPF onwards, which shows by the red arrows. And also, the nitrates of the CIGS cells also promote a significant increase in the transcript abundance of the genes involved in the oxidative stress, the metallothionein, the hormonal pathway ER stress, as well as the apoptosis.
After hearing a lot of solar panel experts explaining a lot of impacts induced by the disposal stage of solar panels, what are the recommendations? Direct disposal of solar panels may not be allowed under the current regulatory framework, as the printed circuit boards have very high concentration of toxic metals. Therefore, recycling is the best way to maximize its environmental benefits. But there are 3 major obstacles that requires the responsible parties to deal with, including low recovery of materials, uncertain reselling volume, and decentralized installation. This is the end of the news of today. Goodbye.